Welcome back to our sequence on environmental consequences of engineering design. In this session, we will continue to use electronics and electronic devices to understand the range of environmental consequences on plants, animals, and people that are posed by the continued design, production, and proliferation of electronics. In this session, we address the disposal of electronics and the many products containing electronics. Prior to this session, we have looked at the other stages of the life cycle of most electronics, from the extraction of natural resources to manufacturing those products to their consumption and use in modern society. In this session, we will look at the last step in the life cycle of electronics, the grave, when devices and appliances are no longer needed and are in some way, shape, or form returned to the earth or recycled for future use. When considering electronic waste, the first thing we need to do is define it. What is meant by electronic waste? That's a good question, and one that involves embracing a diverse and heterogeneous pile of many sizes, shapes, and functions of electronics. Electronic waste can involve everything from the little devices we carry in our pockets, such as smartphones, iPods, and other consumer electronics, to the medium-sized electronics from desktop computers to DVD players to tablets and e-readers. And electronic waste also involves large devices, including refrigerators, televisions, washers, dryers, and many other household appliances. In combination, the diverse bunch of stuff we call electronic waste adds up to a huge pile that often has nowhere to go. Electronic waste is predicted to reach 65 million tons by 2017, but compared to the other waste we generate, it is still a small quantity compared to the stuff we throw into landfills every year. This begs the question, is electronic waste really an environmental problem, or is it just another environmental hoax or fake news piece elegantly designed to ruin your morning or solicit your financial donations? Let's look more closely at that question. Is the electronic waste crisis really a crisis, or is it more of an exaggerated hoax? Looking at the numbers, electronic waste still makes up less than 4% of the overall garbage we generate in the world. How could such a small fraction of waste be a problem? Perhaps it could be a problem if we aren't able to or don't recycle it at the rates we do other solid waste. Let's take a look at this possibility. While plastic and paper, even car batteries, are recycled at increasingly high rates ranging from 20% to almost 100%, it looks like e-waste isn't keeping up with the program. In fact, even the most recycled of electronics, televisions, and computers, are recycled at levels comparable to plastic bottles, which, as we know from looking at our own trash cans, are not recycled well at all, at a dismal rate of only about 20% in the United States. Given this dismal recycling performance, perhaps electronic waste is indeed a crisis in our world today. Part of the reason that many in the United States don't believe the severity of the e-waste problem is the disparity in data regarding both its volume and its recycling. The EPA, for example, in this first diagram, estimates recycling rates from state reports generated from recycling stations. While this data may be more accurate and not subject to individual bias, it may miss some waste that is indeed recycled properly. However, when evaluated by asking individual consumers how much e-waste they recycle, the numbers, as shown in the second diagram, not surprisingly, go way up. People like to believe the best in what they do and often over-report the goodness of their behavior. Clearly, there's a wide margin for error in both reporting techniques. Just as clearly, however, any way the picture is painted, a very large amount of e-waste is nevertheless being dumped into landfills, dumped illegally, or not being recycled properly. To make matters worse, while e-waste is a small part of overall waste, it donates an incredible amount of toxicity to our waste. For example, while e-waste is less than 5% of what sits in our landfills, it donates 75% of toxic heavy metals to our landfills and the soils and groundwaters that sit below these landfills. Electronic waste does a stellar job of re-gifting its metals to all who grow crops and use groundwater to survive in the vicinity of these landfills. The heterogeneity of electronic waste is another disadvantage of it compared to mainstream solid waste. While some electronic waste is highly toxic, for example, old computer monitors and TVs can each contain up to 5 pounds of lead per unit. LED and other modern light sources can contain both arsenic and lead, and many rechargeable batteries contain cadmium and other dangerous heavy metals. Despite this, many electronics are benign. Enclosures, while big and bulky, contain largely aluminum, a plentiful metal that causes minimal harm to living creatures. The only risk with otherwise harmless cables of all kinds is that they contain coveted copper, and in the process of trying to get the copper out during recycling, we create other toxins. And a wide range of electronic components contain mostly ceramic, creating minimal threat to the environment when dropped into a landfill. The problem here is that we must sort the toxic from the non-toxic, and when considering the huge volume of waste, this process is cumbersome and costs money that many are unwilling to spend on ensuring waste does not hurt either ecosystems or human health. While electronic waste and solid waste is generated all over the world in unacceptable quantities, the United States plays an especially harmful role in both arenas. In total waste, the U.S. leads the world in the amount of garbage generated per person. And in electronic waste, while it's not the leader, it nevertheless is on the top 10 list for worst e-waste producers around the globe. Considering the high-tech talent in the U.S., there must be a way to get the U.S. off these top offenders lists. But for now, the rumor is true. Electronic waste, especially in the United States, is big, diverse, and has more bang for the buck than other waste in terms of harming air, soil, water, and ultimately human health. It's a concern, and one we must address now and in future design and production of electronics. This concludes our introduction to the disposal phase of electronics, components, devices, and appliances. Thank you for joining us today. We certainly hope that we've convinced you that e-waste, while a small portion of overall waste, has a level of toxicity that merits a place of honor among the bad actors in the waste stream. Concerned? Then please feel free to join us in future sessions to look at what is done and what engineers can do to reduce the harm created by the electronic waste stream.